I found out my wife was cheating, and my life fell apart. I used to think I had the kind of marriage people envied. 7 years together, countless memories, and a bond one believed nothing could break. My friends would often say, "You're so lucky, man. She's perfect." And honestly, I believed it too. She was my partner, my best friend, and the person I thought I would grow old with. But looking back now, maybe that blind trust was the biggest mistake of my life. It started like any other ordinary day. I came home from work, and she was already there, laughing quietly to herself while scrolling on her phone. At first, I thought nothing of it. But when I asked her what was so funny, she quickly locked the screen and said, "Oh, just a silly meme." That uneasy feeling hit me right in the gut. It was small, but it planted a seed of doubt that wouldn't stop growing. Over the next few weeks, little things began to stack up. She stayed up later than usual, her phone constantly buzzing with notifications she never explained. She guarded that device like it held the nuclear codes, always face down on the table, always set to silent. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was paranoid. After all, we'd built a life together, and I trusted her with everything I had. But something in my chest told me I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and the ground was about to give way. And then one night, it did. Before all this happened, our life felt like a storybook. We met in college, both awkward and unsure of ourselves, yet something clicked instantly. I remember the first time I saw her smile. It lit up the whole room. She was funny, intelligent, and had this way of making everyone around her feel at ease. I fell for her instantly, and she seemed to feel the same. We spent years building our life together. From late-night study sessions to first apartments, road trips, and countless lazy Sundays watching movies on the couch. We had inside jokes, secret traditions, and routines that became sacred. She knew exactly how I liked my coffee in the morning, and I remembered every favorite book she ever mentioned. Our relationship wasn't perfect, of course. We argued, we disagreed, we tested each other's patience. But I always thought those moments made us stronger. Friends and family adored us as a couple. People often commented on how in sync we were, how happy we seemed together. And honestly, I believed it. I believed we were untouchable, that nothing could shake the foundation we had built. Even when small arguments happened, I never worried. They were fleeting and quickly forgotten, overshadowed by the countless happy moments. I never imagined that behind all that laughter and love, a hidden storm was quietly brewing. Looking back now, I can pinpoint the cracks that started forming long before I even suspected. Subtle changes in tone, tiny moments of evasiveness, the little things that didn't make sense at the time. They were like warning signs I chose to ignore because I trusted her, because I wanted everything to be perfect. And then the perfect life I believed in began to crumble, piece by piece, in ways I could never prepare for. It started with little things. Tiny, almost insignificant at first, but they piled up so fast that I couldn't ignore them anymore. She began to act differently around her phone, where once she would leave it on the table, easily within reach. Now it was always face down, always locked, always vibrating with notifications she wouldn't show me. Then came the sudden late nights. She claimed it was work, that projects were piling up, but something about the way she avoided eye contact, the hurried explanations, made my stomach twist with unease. She would come home smelling different, not in a new perfume kind of way, but like she had been somewhere, someone else. That wasn't me. Even her tone changed. The warmth and laughter I had grown so used began to feel rehearsed. Her smile seemed sharper, almost practiced. And every time I asked her about her day, she'd brush it off, saying, "Nothing much, just busy." At first, I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. Maybe it's just stress. Maybe I'm imagining things. But deep down, a knot of fear started to grow in my chest, tightening with every little inconsistency. The thought that someone I trusted completely could be hiding something from me felt unbearable, yet impossible to ignore. I started noticing patterns I had never seen before. Hidden phone calls, text messages glanced at too quickly, sudden changes in plans, unexplained exits from the house. I felt like a stranger in my own home, walking on the edges of a truth I wasn't ready to face. By the time I realized that these signs weren't coincidences, I was already trapped in a cycle of anxiety. Every notification, every excuse, every late night felt like another piece of a puzzle that I didn't want to solve, but couldn't stop myself from trying. The worst part? I still loved her. More than ever. I wanted to trust her, to believe in the life we had built, and that love made the suspicion sting even harder. As the days passed, the small signs of suspicion I had noticed began to weigh heavily on me. At first, I tried to shrug them off, telling myself I was overthinking. Maybe she really is just busy. Maybe it's nothing. But the unease wouldn't leave. It lingered in the back of my mind like a shadow, growing darker with each passing day. Every interaction became a test of my trust. If she answered her phone too quickly, I wondered who it was. If she laughed at a message, I felt a pang of jealousy and confusion. I started replaying moments in my head, analyzing every word, every glance, every slight change in tone. My mind became a prison of doubt, and I couldn't escape. Even friends noticed it. I stopped enjoying our usual conversations because my mind was constantly elsewhere, preoccupied with what I couldn't see but felt in every corner of my home. I began checking things I never used to: emails, her schedule, social media activity. I hated myself for it, but I needed answers, needed some way to confirm or deny the gnawing feeling in my gut. The more I suspected, the more isolated I felt. I didn't want to confront her yet, not without proof, but the tension between us grew. I noticed her sighing when I entered the room, her tone slightly clipped, her smile a fraction too forced. Every little detail added fuel to the fire inside me. At night, I would lie awake, heart racing, imagining the worst. I imagined betrayal in ways I didn't even know were possible. I replayed every memory, wondering if the laughter, the kisses, the promises had all been an illusion. The doubts weren't just in my mind. They had become a storm that shook every moment of our life together. And yet, despite everything, part of me clung desperately to hope. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this was just a phase. Maybe my trust hadn't been betrayed. That hope made the growing fear all the more painful. It was a cruel tug-of-war between love and suspicion, one I knew could not last forever. I never thought a single moment could change everything, but that night proved me wrong. I was cleaning up the living room when her phone buzzed on the coffee table. Normally, I wouldn't have touched it, but something inside me snapped. I picked it up, my hands trembling, and unlocked it with her fingerprints still lingering on the screen. At first, I tried to tell myself I was imagining things, but the messages popped up before I could blink. Flirty, intimate texts late at night, filled with words I couldn't believe. Words I never thought my wife would write to anyone else. There were pictures, secret plans, and conversations with a man I didn't know, yet who clearly occupied the space in her heart that I thought was mine. My chest tightened. My hands shook. My stomach churned as I scrolled through the thread, each message a dagger to my trust. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Everything I had taken for granted, the late nights, the secrecy, the sudden distance, suddenly made sense. It was all real. The affair was real. I sat there, frozen, feeling the world collapse around me. How long had this been going on? How many lies had I unknowingly accepted as truth? The laughter, the I love yous, the shared dreams, all it felt like a carefully constructed illusion. Tears blurred my vision as I stumbled back, my mind screaming for answers. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and utterly lost. The person I had trusted with my life had chosen someone else, and I was left holding the fragments of a marriage I thought would last forever. For the first time in years, I felt completely alone, even though she was still in the house. The proof was undeniable, and there was no escaping it. Everything had changed in a single moment. My world, my heart, my trust, shattered. The moment I realized the truth, my body reacted before my mind could even process it. My chest felt tight. My hands trembled uncontrollably, and a hot, burning anger surged through me alongside a deep, hollow sadness. It was like a switch had flipped. I was both numb and overwhelmed at the same time. I remember pacing the living room, unable to sit still, my mind racing through every memory we had shared. I kept asking myself, how did I not see this? How could she do this to me? Every laugh, every hug, every promise replayed in my head, now tainted by the knowledge of betrayal. It felt surreal, like I was watching my life unravel in slow motion. I wanted to scream, to shout, to throw something across the room, but I couldn't. Part of me just wanted to disappear, to escape from the reality that had suddenly become unbearable. My heart ached with disbelief, and tears ran freely down my face. I felt humiliated, exposed, like the foundation of my life had been ripped away while I was blind to it. The silence of the house was deafening. I could feel her presence behind me, and my chest tightened even more. I knew she would see the change in me, the shock written all over my face. Every instinct screamed at me to confront her immediately, but I was frozen, trapped in a storm of emotions raging inside me. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, I realized I had to face her. I had to demand the truth, hear her side, and confront the betrayal I had uncovered. But even as I walked toward her, part of me feared what I might hear, what I might discover next, and whether I could ever see her the same way again. I finally couldn't hold it in anymore. My voice shook as I asked, "What is going on? Who are you texting?" Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought she might deny it. But then came the silence, the long, heavy silence that felt like a lifetime. She fumbled for words, avoiding my gaze. I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered, almost as if saying out loud could make it real. My heart pounded in my chest. "Didn't mean for it to happen?" I repeated, my voice cracking. "You've been lying to me for months." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she tried to explain, stumbling over every word. She said it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything, that she was confused and lonely, but every excuse felt like salt in the wound. I wanted to scream, to hit something, to shake her until she understood the depth of my pain. But all I could do was stand there, frozen, listening to the words that shattered my world. Her reactions were a mix of fear, guilt, and desperation. She tried to justify herself, saying she still loved me, that it didn't change how she felt about our life together. But how could I reconcile her words with the messages I had read, the proof I had in my hands? Every lie, every secret moment, every hidden interaction screamed louder than her apologies. I remember pacing the room, fists clenched, trying to control the chaos inside me. The love I still felt battle with the anger that threatened to consume me. How could someone you trust so deeply betray you like this? I asked myself over and over again. By the end of that night, we hadn't resolved anything. I had demanded the truth. She had given it reluctantly, and all that was left was a mix of heartbreak, disbelief, and the cold reality that nothing would ever be the same. After hours of pacing questions and half-hearted excuses, the truth finally came out. There was no hiding it anymore. She broke down, admitting everything with tears streaming down her face. "Yes, it happened. I didn't plan it, and I don't know why I did it," she said, her voice trembling. Every word felt like a hammer to my chest. I sat there in stunned silence, the room spinning around me. The reality hit me harder than I ever could have imagined. The late nights, the secret messages, the subtle distance. It was all real. She had been seeing him for months, keeping it hidden behind the smiles, the routines, the perfect life we had built together. Her confession wasn't just words. It was the unraveling of our entire world. I could feel my heart breaking, piece by piece, as I listened. The anger and betrayal surged, but beneath it all was a deep, aching sadness. I had loved her more than anyone in my life, and now that love felt like it had been twisted into something cruel and unrecognizable. She tried to explain, crying, pleading for understanding, claiming it didn't mean she didn't love me. But I couldn't hear her. All I could hear were the words I had seen on that phone, the proof of a betrayal that could never be undone. Every attempt to justify it only deepened the wound, making it clear that trust had been completely shattered. In that moment, I realized that the truth had a power far greater than any lie. It was raw, undeniable, and irreversible. There was no going back to the life we had known. No way to erase the knowledge that the person I loved most had broken the one rule I thought was unbreakable: loyalty. I wanted to yell, to scream, to demand answers that could never truly satisfy me. But all I could do was sit there, numb, trying to process a reality I wasn't ready to accept. The perfect marriage I thought I had no longer existed. After the confession, I felt like I was drowning in a storm I couldn't escape. My emotions were everywhere at once. Anger, betrayal, sadness, disbelief. And they all collided in a way that left me completely numb. I wanted to scream, cry, hit something, but I couldn't. I felt frozen, trapped in the weight of a life I no longer recognized. I kept replaying memories in my head, each one now tainted by the truth. The laughter we shared, the late-night talks, the promises we made, all of it felt like a lie. Every smile she gave me suddenly seemed rehearsed. Every moment of closeness a facade. It wasn't just a betrayal I felt. It was the realization that I had been blind to the signs for so long, and I hated myself for it. Sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw messages, texts, glimpses of the life she had hidden from me. I questioned everything about our past, what was real, what was fake, and what I had somehow missed. I felt a crushing loneliness, even though she was still in the same house. The person I trusted the most had been sharing pieces of herself with someone else, and that knowledge felt unbearable. I couldn't eat, I couldn't focus, and I couldn't think straight. Every small sound made me jump. Every door creak set my heart racing. I realized that trust, once broken, leaves a mark that runs deeper than anyone can anticipate. But amid the anger and despair, there was also a strange clarity forming. I understood that I had to make a decision, one that would shape the rest of my life. I couldn't live in this in-between, in this constant state of pain and uncertainty. Yet, the thought of leaving her, of walking away from years of memories, was almost as terrifying as the betrayal itself. For the first time, I truly felt the fragility of love, the weight of broken trust, and impossible choices that follow when the person you believed in most turns out to be the source of your deepest heartbreak. The days after confession were unbearable. Our home, once a place of comfort and love, felt cold and foreign. Every corner reminded me of the life we had built together, and every memory now carried the shadow of betrayal. Silence filled the spaces where laughter used to be, and even the simplest interactions felt strained, awkward, and heavy. We avoided each other, moving like strangers under the same roof. Shared meals became tense. Conversations were clipped, and I could feel the invisible walls rising between us with every passing day. Friends noticed a change too. Calls went unanswered, invitations declined, and the happy couple everyone admired was nowhere to be seen. I couldn't stop replaying the confrontation in my mind. The moment of truth, the confession, her tears, my shock. It haunted me in every room, every waking hour. I would walk past her, pretending nothing had changed, but inside I was screaming, questioning how someone I loved so deeply could betray me so completely. Even mundane routines became reminders of the affair. Her clothes, the way she moved around the house, the casual mentions of work or friends that now felt like lies, all of it chipped away at the remnants of trust one still clung to. I found myself second-guessing every word, every glance, every memory. The fallout wasn't just emotional. It seeped into every part of my life. Sleep was fleeting and restless, meals tasteless, and focus at work nearly impossible. My mind was a battlefield, torn between anger, sorrow, and a lingering love I still felt for her. I was trapped in a cycle of grief, disbelief, and resentment, unsure of how to navigate the wreckage of our marriage. By the end of the first week, I realized that nothing would be the same. The normal we once knew was gone, replaced by a fragile tension and the weight of truths that couldn't be erased. Every day was a test of endurance, a battle to maintain some semblance of composure, while my world had been turned upside down. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself trapped in a constant battle within my own mind. Every time I looked at her, every word she spoke, I was pulled in two directions. The love I had built over 7 years and the unbearable sting of betrayal. It was like my heart and my mind were at war, each fighting for control. I replayed every memory, searching for signs I might have missed, questioning my own judgment. Could I have done something differently? Was there a moment when I could have prevented this? The questions swirled endlessly, giving me no peace. The anger and resentment burned hot, yet beneath it all was a deep, persistent longing for the person I once thought I knew. I struggled with the idea of forgiveness. Part of me wanted to walk away immediately to protect myself from further pain. But another part of me wanted to salvage what we had, to cling to the years of shared memories, love, and hope. The thought of losing her, of letting go entirely, was almost unbearable. Every night, I lay awake, haunted by what ifs and why me. My mind was relentless, dissecting every detail of our life together. I questioned the authenticity of our past, wondering if every smile, every hug, every promise had been real, or just a facade to mask a betrayal. The uncertainty was paralyzing. I couldn't decide if leaving was liberation or surrender. Staying felt impossible, yet the thought of cutting all ties left me hollow and terrified. It was a torment I hadn't anticipated, a war between reason and emotion, trust and heartbreak, love and self-preservation. In those quiet, sleepless nights, I realized one thing with painful clarity. Whatever decision I made, it would change the course of my life forever. I couldn't undo the past, but I had to choose the future, and that choice would come at cost, whether I stayed or left. After weeks of sleepless nights and endless internal debates, the moment of decision finally arrived. I couldn't keep living in limbo, torn between love and betrayal, hope and despair. Every day that passed without a choice felt like poison slowly eating away at me. I knew that to survive emotionally, I had to take control of my life and make a decision, one that would define the rest of my future. I sat alone in the living room, staring at the walls that had once felt so safe. Memories of laughter, shared dreams, and tender moments clashed violently with the betrayal that now hung over everything. My heart ached with longing for what we once had, but my mind screamed that trust, once shattered, could never be fully repaired. I considered forgiveness. Could I work through this? Could I rebuild the marriage, piece by piece, and learn to trust her again? The idea was tempting, even comforting in its own way. I could cling to the life we had built, the history we shared, and try to start over. But each time I imagined it, doubt and fear crept in. Could I ever see her the same way? Could I ever feel safe again? Then there was leaving, cutting ties, walking away from the pain, the memories, the betrayal. It promised freedom and relief, but also meant grief, loneliness, and the collapse of everything familiar. I would be starting over, but the emotional cost was staggering. The thought of packing my things, leaving our home, and facing a world without her was terrifying. I realized there was no perfect choice. Each path carried its own heartbreak. But at that moment, I understood something crucial. I had to choose what was healthiest for my mind and heart, what would allow me to survive and eventually heal. I couldn't let fear or lingering attachment dictate my life anymore. With a deep breath, I made my decision. I didn't know exactly what the future held or how long the pain would last, but I knew that whatever I chose, it had to be a step toward reclaiming my own life, my dignity, and my peace of mind. After much reflection, sleepless nights, and heart-wrenching conversations, I finally acted on my decision. I chose to leave. It was an easy choice, and it didn't erase the love I still felt, but it was the only way I could begin to heal. I packed my things quietly, took one last look around the home we had built together, and walked out the door, knowing that the life I once knew was over. The days that followed were painful and disorienting. The silence of my new apartment felt strange at first, but gradually it became a sanctuary. I had space to think, to breathe, and to process the whirlwind of emotions that had consumed me. Slowly, the raw intensity of betrayal began to fade, replaced by a quiet resolve to reclaim my life. I learned that healing isn't linear. Some days were easier than others, and moments of sadness would always creep in unexpectedly. But I also discovered a strength I didn't know I had. I began to focus on myself, reconnecting with friends, pursuing hobbies I had neglected, and slowly rebuilding my confidence and trust in my own judgment. As for her, we stayed in contact only when necessary, navigating the legal and logistical aspects of separation. The anger and resentment I had felt initially softened over time, not because what she did was okay, but because holding on to it would only continue to hurt me. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't about excusing her actions. It was about freeing myself from the chains of bitterness. In the end, leaving allowed me to reclaim my life, my dignity, and my sense of self-worth. I learned that sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that lead to the most growth, even if they come with pain and heartbreak. Looking back on everything, I realize now how fragile trust can be and how easily a single betrayal can upend an entire life. For so long, I believed love alone was enough to protect a relationship, that loyalty and commitment were guarantees. I learned the hard way that even in the strongest marriages, people can fail and life can change in an instant. But reflection also brought clarity. I understood that my suffering wasn't just caused by her actions. It was compounded by my own blind faith, by ignoring the subtle signs, by not listening to my instincts. I learned the importance of awareness, of being attuned to reality even when it's uncomfortable. I also discovered my own resilience. The heartbreak was intense, but surviving it taught me that I am stronger than I thought. I can endure loss, face betrayal, and still find a way to rebuild my life. That strength wasn't something I realized I had until I was forced to confront the worst of it. And most importantly, I learned to value myself again, to recognize that my happiness cannot be entirely dependent on someone else, and that self-respect and emotional boundaries are essential. Trust can be rebuilt, but only when it is earned and never taken for granted. This reflection doesn't erase the pain, and I know some scars will never fully fade, but it has given me perspective. I now understand that even in heartbreak, there is growth, and even in loss, there's a path forward, one where I can rebuild, learn, and eventually find peace. If there's one thing I've learned from this experience, it's that betrayal can strike even the strongest relationships, and it can leave you feeling completely broken. But it also taught me that life doesn't end with heartbreak. It evolves, and we have the power to rebuild ourselves stronger than before. To anyone watching this who might be facing something similar, trust your instincts. Don't ignore the subtle signs that something is off. Protect your emotional well-being, and remember that self-respect is not negotiable. It's okay to feel hurt, angry, or lost. It's okay to step away from a situation that no longer serves your mental or emotional health. Healing takes time. It's messy, painful, and unpredictable, but it is possible. Surround yourself with people who care for you. Focus on rediscovering your passions, and take things one day at a time. And remember, moving on isn't about forgetting the past. It's about learning from it and using it to guide your future. I can't say my heart doesn't ache sometimes, or that I'll never think about what was lost. But I can say this: I survived, I grew, and I am reclaiming my life on my own terms. And if you find yourself in a similar situation, know that you can too. Life goes on, even after betrayal. And with time, patience, and self-love, so can you.